All right, folks, I think we've leveled off here. Thanks for joining. I'm Travis Sturek. I'm a product manager here at Peplink. And as usual, this is our Peplink University series, and we are joined again today by Professor P, who is Peter West. Peter, what do we got to talk about today?
Today, we're going to talk about one of my favorite innovations of the Peplink ecosystem is the SIM Injector. And the idea of making SIM cards accessible in various deployments. And so I've got my lab set up. I've got my BR2 Pro 5G with a SIM Injector Mini. I've got an HD1 dome with the SIM Injector 56 volt. And I've got an EPX with 3 domes and the SIM Injector Flex module. So we're going to showcase these technologies and help us understand why we would use them.
I think it's fair to say you've probably deployed more SIM injectors than anybody out there in the Peplink ecosystem. I'm taking a guess at that, but I know you use it heavily, so I'm excited to see the different ways you put this together.
Me too. I'm excited to share it. So I think we should just dive right into what is the SIM Injector, and I actually added another slide. Kind of comparing the SIM Injector to the SIM Extender, because that's actually a very different product. And so the SIM Injector, it comes in 3 flavors. Well, let's talk about what the SIM Injector is, right? So the SIM Injector is the digitalization of a physical SIM card. It is not converting a SIM card to an eSIM officially. Right. So it's the digitalization or the transport of your SIM card certificate over IP. It's probably the most politically correct way to say that, right? Because it takes the physical pins, right?
We're just decoupling the radio and the SIM card so that you can spread those out and make it more convenient, frankly.
So it does require a compatible Peplink router that has the RSIM component built into the module that allows you to do this. So what it's doing is it's taking this physical SIM card, converting it into an electrical signal over the Ethernet, over IP, I should say, and then actually putting that into the module of a modem, of a Peplink modem. And so, and then that's very simplistic. There's a lot of really cool technology goes into this, but I feel like it'd be, I'm not going to do it justice to try to explain the circuitry portion of it.
Sure.
And so,
I think it's just what can you do with it and how does it help you is the big thing.
The idea is really neat, making it so that we can put in SIM cards anywhere in the world and have them show up on a router somewhere else in the world. And what that means, having a SIM card, having a SIM Injector on my desk and having an HD1 dome on the roof of my building, or having a SIM Injector in a compartment in a yacht and having an HD1 dome or multiple HD1 domes on 70 feet up in the air on the top of a mast, or in a really large warehouse building where you maybe have 200 or 300 feet of space between the data center, the IDF, and your domes on the roof. Being able to just have a SIM Injector push those SIM cards out to up to the roof, or in like a cruise ship, where you have thousands of feet, having HD1 domes at either end of the ship and pushing these SIM cards out to the remote domes. And so the idea, or even better, having your data center and having hundreds of Peplink routers out in the field and pushing SIM cards to that's coming soon. It's available, but not today, or not that we're going to talk about today. And so the idea is to review these different methods and why we have 4, 5 technically different products to do this. And so we're going to talk about the 3 SIM Injector main primary devices, and then we're going to talk about the SIM Extender, and then we'll have a little bit of fun with some scenarios. So the SIM Injector is the first product that they made It's basically a 4-port PoE plus switch with 8 SIM cards in it. It supports 12 to 56 volt DC, so you can plug it right into a DC electrical system, or you can plug in a 56 volt AC to DC power adapter through the little the round plug. What's nice about this and the scenario of my lab is I have a SIM injector, and then I'm powering a switch, an AP and a dome, kind of simulating if you had a dome on a boat, you have the SIM injector, and then you have an AP or more than one AP powering that. And so very easy and robust. You don't have to buy an extra PoE plus switch. It's kind of an all-in-one designed for small networks, a very powerful and capable unit. Then you have the SIM Injector Mini. The SIM Injector Mini is designed as a lower cost alternative to people that already have an infrastructure. So if I already have a PoE switch and I don't need PoE, or I want to put this in a different location than my PoE environment for easier access or more robustness, or like in my demo, I have a BR2 Pro 5G with 12 volt system and a battery. I don't want 56 volt, and nor do I need it. And so the SIM Injector Mini is a non-PoE output, but it does support PoE plus input for power to the device. Smaller form factor, and then allows you to push up to 8 SIM cards up to your environment. Then you have the SIM Injector Flex module. This thing is a beast. 56 nano SIM cards in an SDX Pro or EPX. And the idea is there's two currently available, two main purposes for this. One scenario that I'm going to demo today, where I have the Flex module, and then I've got domes, and you can have 3 domes or 16 domes or 40 domes connected to the system using VLAN as WAN capabilities now built into our Peplink environment. So I've got 2 domes VLAN as WAN, 1 dome in synergy mode, and then a Flex module. And so I'm going to showcase that. But the idea here is, one, for enhanced scalability of your infrastructure for larger deployments. 2, remote SIM management. So in other words, an EPX or an SDX or a balanced router can act as a proxy server, and it can actually receive remote requests via the WAN interface to a router. And so there's some technology that Peplink's building out that actually will allow us to remotely manage or remotely push SIM cards out. And the Flex module is really the core base of that starting technology. And it's absolutely amazing to play with. And you can literally, the unit's on, I can pull this out as a ribbon cable. I can see my flashing lights on it. It is really cool. I'll move the camera over there a little bit more next when I move over there for the demo. And so those are the 3 main types of Flex SIM Injector. SIM Injector. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, for folks that aren't quite following here, I think there's maybe a question of, why do I need all these SIM cards, right? Like, what am I doing with 56 SIM cards? And I think you're going to dive into that more, but sometimes you're roaming and you've got a lot of different carriers you need to connect to, and sometimes you're burning through data plans and you need to burn through SIM cards. An A and a B SIM just is not enough in a lot of users' cases, and that might not be the majority of people out there, but there's a lot of people trying to do things with 5G and these technologies that really just need a lot more SIM cards to do what they're trying to do. And this makes it so much easier.
Yeah, there's really 2 main reasons for multiple SIM card diversity, right? Well, 3 primary reasons. 1, multiple modems need multiple SIM cards. So 1-to-1 deployment. 2, like Travis said, data plans, right? If I have a 100 gig data plan and I want to run 3 terabytes of data a month, I need 30 SIM cards, technically. And so data plan management, we call those like maybe data pools or some variant thereof. But the idea is being able to fail over to additional SIM cards once I've reached my limits of a SIM card. That was more important back before the carriers released the business plans, the business unlimited plans. Now we can actually get lots of gigabytes for a very affordable price. But back, 3 years ago or even 2 years ago, Verizon would hard throttle you at 15 or 22 megs or gigs. And it's like, boom, you're done. And it's like 128 kilobits of throughput. And so we needed a lot of SIM cards to push 200 or 300 gigs of data if we wanted to keep that dollar per gigabyte low.
Yeah, I think throttling is a really big one too, because it's not down, right? Like a lot of routers can't really deal with this because it didn't go down. It's still up.
It's not failed. So it's not going to fail over. Yeah.
Yep.
And then the third one is carrier diversity. Whether that's going from an AT&T strong area to a T-Mobile area or a Verizon area, or going from America to South America to Asia to Europe, the ability to roam carriers as you traverse different zones is really important for a lot of customers. And so the SIM Injector provides the ability to easily extend the number of SIM cards into your environment. And there's a couple ways to do that, but it's really like those are the three core reasons why you would want to have it. And I've seen some really cool scenarios where there's additional reasons, like the SIM Injector, just simple location, right? But that's not really a reason for multiple SIM cards as much as just simplicity of deployment.
Location's a great one because if you roll out 1,000 stores and you've got a dome on top and you change carriers, well, that's 1,000 truck rolls.
Yep.
Change the SIM card.
Or you just pull out a superstation and put 1,000 SIM cards in it and you're done.
So you got to get a union guy on a ladder. And I mean, it's just, it turns into a nightmare really fast to just change that itty bitty little smaller than a postage stamp SIM card. And yeah,
exactly. And so the SIM Injector and SIM Injector Mini supports a various number of Peplink routers. And so you're going to get the 20X with contingency here, which I'll follow up on in a second. The 310 5G, the 310 fiber 5G, 310X, 310X 5G, the 380X with the module, the 580X with the Flex Mini module, because those don't come with cellular built in. The SDX Pro with a Flex module, and then the EPX with a Flex module. It is important to note that the SDX Pro and the EPX, and there's a little note here, but there are some of the 3 LTEs that don't support RSIM technology, and you want to go to the 4 LTE, and then the 5G ones do work. But there are a couple older 3 LTE models that don't support the RSIM technology. So just important to know. Now, once again, kind of not as big of a deal unless you're doing remote deployments, because the SIM Injector or the SIM cards are nice and on the EPX in your data center, and you just swap the SIM cards. But it is important to know that the Flex module, there are some Flex modules that don't support RSIM that are the older Cat 6 and stuff like that. Because we had a little issue with that with one of our customers. The SIM Injector, which has 8 SIM cards. They're mini SIM, so they're 2FF. It's the larger of the 3 sizes. So if I grab it's the larger of the 3 sizes. The SIM Injector Mini uses the nano SIM cards. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but the tiny ones, and then the larger of the 3. So 2FF and 4FF. The SIM Injector is 10/100 1000 gigabit with PoE plus output, and the idea here is connecting into using it as a switch. So the idea is you can plug your APs and things like this into it, or other devices. The SIM Injector Mini is just a 10/100 port with PoE input. So once again, be able to just plug this into your infrastructure and extend your SIM cards. It's really great for SIM card, like anywhere. You can plug this into any wall outlet or any connection, and then extend. You can put this in the captain's quarters on a boat, for example, and push those SIM cards out. So really nice. The SIM Injector is a little bit bigger than the SIM Injector Mini. The SIM Injector is higher priced. It's $999 US with a bundle, and that's important to note, because I believe it's more expensive if you buy it by itself. And then the SIM Injector Mini is about half the price, and really scalable. And then the injector is really applicable to like dome products, where you're putting it in for your powering that upstream device. And then the SIM Injector Mini is really applicable to every non-PoE device or PoE output devices. So for example, like powering an SDX, or like in my scenario, a BR2 Pro 5G, or a BR, another product that might support the SIM Injector technology. So the idea is just being able to deploy those simplicity. I'm loving my Mini in my briefcase, and I'll demonstrate that in a little bit, but it's a really cool use case that solves a lot of problems.
Yeah, I think the PoE input on the Mini is really neat too, because that just, like you said, with location, it makes it so much easier, right? You could
you don't have to have 12 volt power. Yeah, you just plug it in.
A captain, you can put it right on the captain's quarters, so he can swap SIM cards or she can swap SIM cards, and then you don't have to plug it in.
Literally just leave the front cover off of it and just let them know, hey, you plug in you can literally plug in whatever SIM card you want in any country you want, and it makes it very user friendly, because they could manually swap SIMs without any programming, and be done up and running. Now you can program it to also fail over, but for simplicity, you could also just manually swap the SIMs, which is what's nice about the Mini. Let's not confuse the SIM Injector versus the SIM Extender. The SIM Extender is a literal ribbon cable that extends the connectors on the SIM slot to an additional external component. The idea here is a lot of times these are used like in the PDX. If you ever use the PDX, you'll have the SIM extenders. So the idea is to basically take the SIM card that's on the back side of a router, maybe build a surface mount, and then move to the front. Actually, if you want, this is something that one of our customers makes. So it's a little 1RU mount that has the SIM extenders connected, and then you can just plug this into an MBX that's underneath it, and now you have the MBX with the SIM cards on the front. And so the idea here is just physically moving the SIM card from the back, from one location on the router to wherever you want. And so the SIM Extender is not an IP-based solution, and it's only compatible with the 2FF, the larger slots at this point. So
yeah, this is just a shorter range version of kind of what we were talking about, just changing the location of the device, right? I've seen it for cases and racks, like you said, and super handy for those examples. But yeah, you got a much shorter distance.
So here's just a side by side of all three, which we've already talked about. But just for the purpose of the video, it's a nice little visual comparison of the three technologies.
I think the other thing that I'll say, the extender, is it's not a software device, right? It is just SIM A goes to SIM A, SIM B goes to SIM B, and it's no different than physically putting them in the slots other than moving it.
Exactly. And so, here's like kind of like deployment scenarios, which is very similar to actually what I have demonstrated. So it's kind of nice. But you have like the SIM Injector with an access point in a dome. It's perfect scenario here. You have a full network being completed by this one product. And so it unifies that environment. The SIM Injector Mini, extending the SIM slots of an MBX or a BR2 Pro 5G, once again, allows you to just change the location of the SIM slots or make it easier to access. And then the Flex module, plugging it into like an EPX or SDX Pro, allowing you to manage additional either remote devices and or further away devices, or just add SIMs to your existing modules if you just need for additional SIM cards for an increased resiliency, like we talked about with database planning, gigabyte planning. So each module only has each modem only supports 2 SIM cards. So if you needed 8 SIM cards or 5 SIM cards for a modem, you could load them up and then use gigabyte planning pools, or use regional swapping to have increase more SIM cards for that diversity. A really cool deployment we did up in Texas, actually. And so we had a whole bunch of domes mounted externally, plugged the SIM injectors into the SDX. The SDX was plugging, it had the domes upstream, And so we were able to push, if you notice, there's only 4 domes in this project, 16 SIM cards. So once again, lots of gigabytes. And that was the whole purpose of this. So dome 1 uses slots 1 through 4. Dome 2 uses slots 5 through 8. Dome 3 is 1 through 4. And dome 4 is 5 through 8. And so the idea is they can have lots and lots of gigabytes, which is the even further extension of the capabilities. There is a user manual for this. How to reset, just hold the power button for 5 to 10 seconds and it's going to reset. What are the requirements for the remote SIM? A cellular router that supports the RSIM technology. And if you upgrade to 8.21 or 8.3, you might see a notification on the bottom. Your device doesn't support RSIM. That is not your device is broken. It's simply letting you know that the modem in your device isn't RSIM capable, because people were buying the SIM injector thinking they could extend it. And so we needed to put a note on the router to identify that, hey, this modem, this device doesn't support RSIM, and make it very aware. The SIM injector itself, and then a SIM card to plug into the SIM injector. Okay, so now I'm going to demo this. So let me go into my lab. So the first thing I have is my Visios, which I love Visio. If you've ever heard me give a talk, especially at Peplink University talk or training, I build Visios for every scenario, for every customer, because I want to make sure that if somebody has a question or is describing a scenario, that my visualization or interpretation of that is the same as your visualization or interpretation of that, of my words. And so the first demo is the EPX SIM Lab. And so in this scenario, I have 2 HD1 domes connected to a 48 port switch that has VLAN tagging, VLAN 1101 and 1102. And then I'm using the new VLAN as WAN feature on the EPX to add these as WANs. Then I'm using the RSIM, remote SIM proxy of the EPX to share the SIM bank over the WAN of the EPX, allowing these domes to talk to this SIM injector over the WAN interface. And then in synergy mode, well, it's different because it brings it internally. And so you're just pointing it at the SIM injector. So it's kind of a weird difference there. But with synergy mode, what I'm doing is demonstrating that it's the built-in cellular modem using synergy mode, and I'm pushing SIM slot 3 to that synergized device. This, once again, we're using VLAN as WAN. It's a pretty neat product. And so my VLAN as WAN, I have the WAN interface that is my SFP13 going up into my switch. And then for the LAN, my PoE, my AP is plugged into the same switch. And so it uses the red cable here, this Ethernet SFP12 or port 51 on the 48 port switch to actually trunk LAN traffic. So I'm trunking WAN and LAN over the same switch. I'm using 2 cables because I play around. You could technically do this all on the LAN, but it's for me, some additional testing that I'm doing in my lab. I have it set up as a dedicated LAN and a dedicated WAN. Then I'm going to demonstrate the HD1 dome. And so let me zoom in on this because that was probably really small. I apologize. And so the HD1 dome scenario here is demonstrated on my lab. And the idea here is we have an HD1 dome connected to a SIM injector with an AP connected to that SIM injector. And then I'm pushing slot 1 up to the dome. Very like why this was invented. And then as I always do, I end up screwing it up for Peplink, and I do something like this where I said, hey, I can push this out. And this is a standard deployment of mine. It's one of my favorite types of deployments. I take the SDX Pro with 2 8-port flex modules, and then I can plug anywhere from 2 to 6, well, to about 10. You get to a PoE budget limit, but 2 to 12 domes connected here, and then plugging in a SIM injector and then pushing the SIMs up to those remote domes. And once again, this is using something called the remote SIM proxy, which I will demonstrate when I show the EPX setup. But this is a very standard deployment of mine. And then we build little briefcases. So we put Peplinks in briefcases with a little 12-volt battery, but constant complaint. I can't access the SIM slots. The SIM slots are on the back. I've got all the Ethernet, all the antenna cables back there. They're pushed back against the back. No one can see the SIM cards. Common complaint. So we took a SIM Injector Mini and I put it in my briefcase facing forward. So the SIM slot is backwards against the back wall of the briefcase, but the SIM Injector Mini extends that out, and I'm powering it with the 12-volt, the same 12-volt battery that powers my BR2 Pro 5G. So now I have a hotspot that supports 8 SIM cards for AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon continuity that is all connected via 12-volt and a battery with high-gain antennas and a little briefcase design. And so I'm going to demonstrate that. And once again, the idea behind Professor P and the reason I'm going through this so fast is I wanted to make sure I give time to show you how I configure this. Now, normally we will set this up live. However, it actually takes a while for SIM cards to activate, whether with or without a SIM injector. And so I thought instead of having like a 2-minute pause, I would have everything pre-programmed and show you the settings. So this is going to be a little bit different demo where I'm basically going to show you what I did rather than doing it live, mostly to save you guys from the waiting while I spin things up and program them on my laptop. So let's go to Peplink University InControl. Is that okay size? Or should I do something like that? Is that better?
Oh, it's good.
Okay. So let me zoom in on that. That one's already zoomed in. Okay. So the first one we talked about is my EPX design. So this is right here. And so what I have, can you hear me okay if I talk louder?
So far.
Okay. So what I have is the EPX, the fiber cables. These are 10 gig fiber going up into my switch. And then I have the SIM injector flex module right here. And so I've got 3 SIM cards installed in it right here. Then I have 2 cables going from the 48 port switch to these 2 domes here. And then this dome right here is being powered by synergy mode right here. So here's my device. You can see here's my Ethernet 1.7 HD1 synergy. Here's my VLAN 1101 HD1 dome. That's just the last 2 octets of the IP just from my memory. And then here's my VLAN 1102 HD1 dome, and then my switch and my EPX and my AP1 enterprise. So if I log into my switch, what I've done is I've set ports 1 through 7. Oh, sorry, 1 and 2. I forgot I factory reset this for the demo. So I have 1 and 2 are set as access VWAN 1101. So if I click on this and go to edit, I set to an access port VLAN 1101. That way, when I plug the dome into that, it's being tagged 1101 as it enters the switch. Then on port 49, this trunks down to the EPX. And so I trunk 1101 to 1107. So I have 7 of these that I could trunk if I wanted to. Actually, I've got these 1201s, but that's for a different project. And so I have 1101 to 1107 that then get trunked down on port 49, which goes into my Ethernet, my SFP 1-3. So I have a dedicated 10 gig fiber link just for my VLAN as WAN. Then I have my port 51, which I trunk VLAN 1 and VLAN 188, my management. And so you can see there's my devices. So I've got a PoE camera running on 192.168.5 on VLAN 1. I've got my whatever .12 is, probably my speed connect relay device, and then or my AP. No, that'd be my AP. So my AP is 1.12, and then I've got my switch, which is being managed on the 188 network, and so it's trunking down on VLAN 188, whereas the actual switch's interface is on the network management VLAN. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. I'm trying to keep it relatively simple, but I want to show you what I did. I want to show you how this got done. And this will be published on YouTube, so you can always watch it later and check those settings. So then on the EPX, we want to program everything. So I'm going to go to my EPX, I'm going to go to Settings, Remote Web Admin. See the waiting. This is why I didn't want to do all of it waiting. Okay. So you can see here I've got 3 internet connections. You can see that I'm synergizing one of my domes. You can see Ethernet 1.7, which is this one right here, is in synergy mode. And instead of showing up as a dome, it shows up as cellular 1.1. Then my 2 domes show up as just regular Ethernet WANs. These are Ethernet WANs. And then I've got my SIM injector, and you can see max capacity, 56 SIMs. And then you can see my fiber modules. So on the synergy mode, I go to network, and we do have a synergy mode video, but just for the purposes of going through the steps, I go to WAN, and if I scroll all the way down under WAN, synergy controller, I turn it on, and I have synergy enabled for Ethernet 1.7 and 1.8. So Ethernet 1.7 and 1.8 are my synergy capable ports. So if I plugged another dome into Ethernet 1.8 or a transit duo or something else, those Ethernet ports would show up. Once you plug in a factory reset 8.3 dome into Ethernet 1.7, it comes up as a cellular device. And then you'll see it says priority for Ethernet 1.7 connected to, and there's my dome. So I can click on cellular 1.1, and I can manage this as if it was a modem. And you'll see down here, I've got SIM A, SIM B, and then remote SIM. And I simply put in the serial number of the Flex module, which is on the box when you buy it or underneath it. Not super convenient in a Flex module, so make sure you document that when you plug it in. But you program the serial number of the Flex module and then the port that you want it to use. So you don't have to use a port number, but when you're doing multiple SIM cards, it's nice to know that they're not going to try to hit the same one. I find this is actually sort of like something of trial and error, where you have, if you have a whole bunch of SIM cards and the domes are just randomly picking a SIM card, which it will do, it's not clean, because like dome A is looking at SIM 5 and then dome A is looking at SIM 3 the next time you reboot. So it just, for me, I know that SIM 3 or slot 3 is going to dome 3, and it's very clean and nice. And then right here under the priorities, I can prioritize. So I can say, here's my 2 integrated slots on the dome, and then here's my my remote SIM. So I want remote SIM to be priority 1, and then the physical SIMs to be priority 2. And there is a reason for that that's going to be coming later with some even enhanced technology. And then I hit save and apply, and then this dome reads the SIM injector because it's on the LAN. So it reads the SIM injector, starts working, everything's great. On the WAN side, VLAN is WAN, we need to enable remote SIM proxy. So if I go into my router, the URL up top, there's the index.cgi. If I change this to support.cgi, I have the ability to turn on remote SIM proxy right here. Boop. I can click to configure, and I turn it on. Remote SIM proxy allows the WAN of the router to proxy the SIM injector. Once I turn on the remote SIM proxy and enable that, I can now log into my VLAN as WAN domes. Oops. And there's 2 things that we have to do on a dome that's being proxied via the WAN of an upstream or downstream router. First, we want to go to the Advanced tab and enable Remote SIM Management. So you don't have to add all these extra settings. This is for pools and really cool. There's some cool advanced stuff you can do here, but just to make it work, You just click the edit button, turn on auto land discovery, hit save. That's it. There are other things. There's more advanced things that you can do, but for the purpose of this lab, it doesn't have to be overly complicated. You can add automatic settings here. And the reason why you would do this is you can add the serial number, and then you can add you can customize the APN. So for example, say you have a Verizon SIM with a static APN, and you need that Verizon SIM to come up as SO01.VZW static. Well, I can add the serial number of my SIM injector, put in the port name, slot 2, custom SO01.VZW static. And now when it pulls that SIM slot, it's going to apply the APN. So if you have static IP addresses on like T-Mobile or AT&T or Verizon, or you're using a custom APN SIM card, you want to use this add remote SIM feature to customize the APN. That way, when the router pulls that in, it knows what APN to use. So you hit save and apply changes. Then you go to the dashboard, click on cellular, go to remote SIM, and put in your serial number, the port. So this one is going to use port 1. The other one is using port 2. And then the SIM injector, the Synergy mode one, is using port 3. So now I have all 3 SIM cards being pushed up to the domes via my EPX. And so kind of complicated, but that took like all of 9 minutes to explain with the Vizio. So not that bad. The issue is patience. It takes a few seconds. Don't press apply changes and then think it's not working because it says no SIM card. Give it a few seconds to query the SIM injector. You'll see it start flashing. I wish I could move my camera closer, but you'll see it. Well, actually, I might be able to see if I can. This one's battery powered, so I don't know if you can see this on the camera or not. So I'm going to try it. Can you see it flashing right there? So the SIM card, when the SIM card is being read by the domes or by whatever, it's going to start flashing. That's how you know it's working. So if it's not flashing, the upstream device is not looking at it. And so that's important to note. Sorry, I hope that wasn't too awkward moving the camera like that, but okay. And then just to make it all nice and pretty, I went to SpeedFusion Connect Protect, enabled client mode, turn on bonding, went to my advanced, went to outbound policies, set an enforced rule that uses SpeedFusion Connect. And then if I look at my SpeedFusion VPN status, I can see there's my 2 VLAN as WANs and there's my 1 cellular being actively used. And so I'm bonding all this stuff via the EPX. Was that too complicated, Travis? I mean, did that kind of answer the? Okay, good.
This is technology that nobody else has. So, it took you 9 minutes to explain it, and yeah, you can't do this elsewhere. So yeah, I think that makes sense. One thing that I will throw out is just a little detail that the VLAN as WAN engineering is working on making that compatible with Synergy mode too, so that you would actually get that same experience there.
That's why this is factory reset, because I was running the special firmware that had Synergy mode for VLAN as WAN. So it is coming. I just didn't want to demo it. It's not GA yet, so I didn't want to demo it. But yes, it works great. So VLAN as WAN Synergy mode basically would make this cellular 1.1, cellular 1.2, or cellular 2.1, and cellular 3.1, and you'd actually have 3 cellulars built right in, and then the remote proxy settings and things like that go away. And so it's really cool technology. So I would assume we'll see that in probably 8.3.1. I would assume that
8.3.1 or 9. I'm not sure. I think it might make the next one, but yeah, we'll see. But yeah, either way, it's going to get even easier to configure this.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, you won't have to enable the remote proxy. But if you're going to be connecting domes via an SDX or EPX, in a WAN environment where it's going in on the WAN, either here or in this design, you have to enable that remote proxy so these domes can connect it, can properly access the SIM injector on the LAN of a host unit. So the next design is this guy right here. By far the easiest, and if I was going to do a real-time demonstration, this would be it. You plug in the SIM injector, you put in a SIM card into it, you give it power, and the status will stay flashing. This is what's really cool about the SIM injector. The status will stay flashing until it gets an IP address. So you know that it's searching. Like if it's flashing, it means it can't get an IP address from an upstream dome. Then you plug in your dome, the dome's going to power up. It's going to then offer DHCP. The SIM injector is going to snag an IP address from the dome, and then you're going to have a connection. The status light will now go solid. Additionally, you can then, once that dome is online, you'll have your AP. It can go into this, and it's going to get an IP address from the dome as well. The dome is a router, so everything you need, all the brains, are built right into that dome. And so this is. Let me just close this out. Close this out. Okay, SIM Injector 56. There we go. So here's my HD1 dome, my SIM Injector, and my AP1 Enterprise. It is important to understand that the SIM Injector is a very limited processor. A common complaint is, how do I know what's on the SIM Injector? I can't manage the SIM Injector. InControl doesn't have reporting for like the ports and stuff on the SIM Injector. There are some features coming to InControl. I was running some beta software and did see something earlier. But InTouch, I can click on my SIM injector here. And I can manage my SIM injector from InControl via InTouch. This at least gives you the visibility of your SIM cards and the clients that are connected to it. So you can see what's going on. I can pull this up and I get my IMSI, my ICC ID. I can see pin status is disabled and the other slots are empty. So I know, and then here, you can see right here connected. That's the dome that's connected to this SIM card. So I can see the dome that's connected to this SIM card. And so even though this information is not being pulled up into InControl, it's very nice to be able to use InTouch to access these LAN IoT devices to be able to pull this information in. I just wanted to throw that out there as just a bonus perk of InTouch. Okay, so once you have it physically wired up, I had to hook a laptop up, right? Because you got to tell the dome to use the SIM injector, and that's one of the things to be aware of in this scenario, or actually even in the EPX scenario. I did take my laptop, I Ethernet connected into the SIM injector, which gave me an IP address, and then I logged into my router. So imagine this is 192.168.50.1. So I logged into the router, and this is very, very easy to do. So with the SIM injector on the LAN of a device, where the device is the router or the hub, there's no additional programming necessary. You simply click on your cellular module and tell it which port to use and the serial number of your SIM injector. So I put in this on the bottom of it, the SIM injector is a serial number. I put in the serial number, colon, the port, which is port 1. I can tell it to use multiple ports. And I can tell it to fail over those ports with bandwidth allowance monitor or with acceptable signal threshold. So if I have AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon, and my acceptable level is 3 bars of service, it will fail over appropriately. Or if it can't connect on 1, it will then reconnect on 2 or reconnect on 3. So you can use the router, the modem options to fail over multiple SIM injector or multiple SIM cards in the remote SIM. So that does work. Additionally, if you have physical SIM cards in the device, you can set priorities and say, hey, use remote SIM first, then SIM B, then SIM A, or whatever you want to do there, and turn those on and off. So you can't, but other than that, you hit save and apply, And that's all you have to do. And then query, you'll see the SIM slot one start flashing, and then it'll say, you know, with LTE bars, and then it'll connect to your carrier, and then you're online. So the SIM injector with a dome, very easy. There's no advanced options or settings. You just simply put in the serial number of the dome. If you want the optional port, :1 or :2. If you don't want to do that, if you just want to search all your SIM cards, you can just leave the colon blank, and it'll just randomly grab an available SIM card that's in the SIM injector. I don't find that to be super reliable. I don't do that, but it does work. And then I went back into InControl once it was online. And then I just went into Wi-Fi, group-wide Wi-Fi settings, set up my Wi-Fi. So SIM injector 56-volt Wi-Fi, and then pushed it out to the AP, and that was it. I'm going to add one more thing that I did do. The SIM injector is relatively new technology, and Peplink it does have firmware. And so you can go to peplink.com, and this is more of a plug for Peplink support. So I just want to throw it out there. You have some amazing engineers that are constantly improving and making the technology better. And don't start blushing, but you know, Peplink support is phenomenal. And the other thing too is I can go to support, firmware downloads, no serial number, no username and password, no proof of purchase. Here is all the latest hardware or firmware for all the devices. So I click SIM injector, and there's my firmware. I've got 1.1.115, 1.1.103, and 1.0.25. And the reason they do this, if you're running if you boot up a SIM injector and it's running 1024, you have to go to 25 first. Do not go straight to 1115. It won't work. It'll fail. So you want to go 1025, then 11103, then 1115. So you do want to upgrade in series there, and which is the reason why they're all sitting right there. And then if you want to see what's different, you can download the PDF of the release notes and see what they've improved. So you click download, and then I used InTouch once again. So I just plugged in that dome, or you can either log in locally once you know the IP 192.168.50.11 for me, and then you use InTouch, and then I just logged into the router and pushed the latest 115 firmware. And so very easy to do. Let me see if I can find that, show you how I did that, because that's the purpose of these videos. So I'm going to log into that SIM injector remotely. You go to settings, firmware, and I just choose file and boot it up 115. So, and then that's it. So, that's all I did. Update the firmware, pointed the HD1 dome to the router, and then it all came online and InControl. And then I set the Wi-Fi SSID and InControl for the AP. So now I'm going to go to my BR2 Pro 5G demo. The BR2 Pro 5G is using the SIM Injector Mini. Once again, the SIM Injector, this one I left off of InControl because I wanted to demonstrate the InTouch capabilities, but also making it nice and clean. I am a massive fan of the BR2 Pro 5G. I think it's one of the coolest routers Peplink has made in a long time, which is hard to say because the APX, the STX Pro, the 2500 EC, I mean, there's a lot of good routers, but for portability, it's a 12-volt system. So let's see if I can bring this over here to my desk and show off a little bit. So I have I'm trying to do this as nicely as possible. I apologize, everybody. So what I have is the BR2 Pro 5G, but the SIM cards are back here, and it's really hard to reach. So if you can imagine this mounted in a vehicle or mounted on a shelf, trying to reach behind to get the SIM cards is a pain in the butt. I'm sorry, I probably shouldn't have said that on camera. It's a pain in the neck. And so I took a SIM injector, plugged it in via 12 volt. and so I've got a power button right here, and you can see my power button light. You see the red power button light right there. So the 12-volt power comes in to my power button, splits off, and goes to the BR2 Pro 5G and the SIM injector. LAN cable goes from the SIM injector right to the BR2 Pro 5G, and then I programmed it. So let me show you how I programmed it. Okay. So BR2 Pro 5G, I plugged in the SIM injector, went to client list, and I can see, hey, where's my, maybe because I'm zoomed in so much. Oh, I've already programmed InTouch, so I apologize. So there's a button right here, InTouch. So you can click InTouch, which will then take you into the InTouch configuration, which I already programmed up. And then I've set up the SIM Injector Mini. Let me see here. Oh, wrong client list. Go to device, go to clients. There we go. Action InTouch. So you can see there's my SIM Injector 192.168.50.10. I click InTouch. It takes me to the InTouch configuration. And I just have the SIM Injector HTTP 192.168.50.10:80. And then there it is right there, SIM Injector Mini. I click play or go. And I can log right into this SIM Injector Mini. I updated the firmware to 11115. And I have 2 SIM cards in here because the BR2 Pro 5G has 2 modems. So I've got my SIM Injector Mini, and I've got 2 SIM cards installed. So there they are right there. And you can see that it's connected to the same serial number. There's my BR2 Pro, but slot 0 or modem 0 and modem 1. So the first one and the second one. Binary, by the way, or most things, they start with 0 as the first number. So, so there's my 2 connected right there. And then on the router, so once again, I had to do this with a laptop connected. Because obviously with the SIM injector, you got to tell it to use the modem, so it's not going to come online. So you do have to do this with we should do something where it has like an auto discover SIM injector, you know, that'd be kind of a fun feature. And so here's my BR2 Pro 5G, pull up cellular. Once again, because I'm on the LAN, the LAN, all I did is put in the serial number of the SIM injector Mini, :1. And then on this one, I did the serial number of the SIM Injector Mini, :3, because I'm using the top 2. So it's 1 and 3. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, kind of up, down. And so I used 1 and 3. And it came online. I then went to SpeedFusion Connect, set up my bonding. You can see it right there with dynamic weighted bonding. I went to my advanced outbound policies. Set a policy to send all the traffic to SpeedFusion Connect. And now I have a BR2 Pro 5G with 2 SIM cards plugged into the SIM Injector Mini online. And this kit, as it sits right here, well, I'll add more SIM cards, T-Mobile and AT&T, but as it sits right here is going to go with me to Houston tomorrow for my install. So like, this is my kit that I travel, and I love that SIM Injector Mini and the ability just to easily swap SIM cards and modify the SIM cards. It's incredibly convenient. And so I am available. I think that's the end of the demo. The 3 scenarios with a little bit of extras. We do have some cooler technology coming, some cloud management capabilities hopefully coming soon, right, Travis? Maybe I can ping you a little bit on that. So
yeah, absolutely. So, you know, I think there's some questions here about, there's some finer grained tools in the built-in SIM slots on bandwidth allowance and some other ways that you can kind of prioritize with SIM cards. And so the cloud system is going to enable some more advanced controls there, also enable some geography-based controls. So if you're one of those scenarios that you move around, like, you know, in a ship port to port, you're going to be changing countries. That's another great example of where you need to use these, but you're going to need some geographic aware capabilities there. So there's going to be a cloud layer to add a lot more of that flexibility and control, and really enhance that software defined aspect to it.
I can't wait to make that video. So we're gonna have the cloud, and then we also have, what if someone has more than 56 SIM cards? I mean, do we have an option for that?
We do, yes. More is pretty much always a yes at Peplink, right? So we've got a rack appliance that has 448 SIM card slots in it. So when you start getting into that kind of, remotely distributed architecture, that's where you really start loading those up, and you might have redundant pairs of those in different data centers, things like that. But yeah, there's a lot more capabilities here that we're just really starting to scratch the surface on. But
it's one of the things I love about Peplink is your innovation, right? And we're just constantly innovating to solve unique challenges. And so the superstation, the ability to have cloud management and geolocation for the remote SIMs, these features just make it easier and better and more powerful to deploy networks anywhere, which is what Peplink has done. I mean, the whole idea is deploying a network anywhere, and it's been the basis of my entire company, and the work that we do is solving unique connectivity challenges, and that is what the SIM Injector and this modems and the different cards and the different devices and appliances that are made that's what they all make. It's what they provide, is that, or I should say enable, not provide. They enable that diversity and just the ability to deploy anywhere.
Yeah, with 5G and low Earth orbit satellites, the ability to actually get a connection anywhere is more and more possible. And so, yeah, being able to manage that, prioritize that, and control that.
Keith asked a question about why the value of 56. I hope I just answered that, Keith. It's not the official topic of this webinar, but the idea is connecting that to the cloud is really the idea, and that's coming.
Again, that's burning through data plans, that's roaming, there's lots of scenarios that may not be day to day for you or I, but mobile command, broadcasters, mobile medical, those are just a few examples of people that we see often burning through data plans.
And also the other thing too is my deployments of the SIM Injector 56, usually I have 12 or 14 or more HD1 domes. We do some pretty big deployments with high throughput needs. With a 56 bay, it's a single module that lets you manage a bunch of SIM cards. It's very convenient.
When you're trying to connect something really critical, really high bandwidth, one connection to one carrier isn't any different than somebody else on their phone, right? You're just another user on the network in that case.
Correct.
So that's why you're deploying multiple domes for the same carrier, and you're getting more and more cracks at the bandwidth on each of those carriers. And realistically, that's how you enable these really advanced, demanding applications. Is you just need more pipes and more chances to get that bandwidth.
Yeah, Danny, you asked for VSS, the Visual Studio Visio stencils. My marketing team made those, so you could ask them if they want to share them with you. But it's something we've been working on. Every new product gets a new Visio stencil, so you can reach out to, I think it's marketing@westnetworks.com, and Olivia could probably share that with you. Real world use case. Mike Turner, I shouldn't have said last name. I apologize, Mike. Mike asked about the real world use case of ROI. I hope we just did that. That was the idea behind it. Is that there's increased scalability here that goes well beyond just like a super yacht that might have one HD1 dome or one device. This goes into like our mobile mammography, where we have like 16 modems, and we're trying to manage not only connectivity to carrier diversity, but also gigabytes. We're trying to do all three at the same time: high throughput, carrier diversity. I just this morning did a site survey for a company up in Kentucky where we need 4 or 5 T-Mobile, AT&T, and Verizon's each, all being aggregated to provide enough throughput to do what they want to do. The Flex module, the SIM Injector Flex module, what enables that ability for us to have those SIM cards and make it simple for the client to manage. So not to mention the remote capabilities, but also just the girth of the requirement.
Yeah, I think one other thing too is sometimes it's not a dollars and cents thing. Sometimes the return on investment is purely operational simplicity,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes
It's
it's
the
so
ability to
important.
make commission.
Yeah, for them to be able to, use this in a manner that doesn't require IT every day to automate those, so you can automate those events. That's often really the driver, is not saving money, it's saving people and time and improving that user experience too.
Topher asked a great question. Bandwidth allowance monitor is coming. It's not supported on RSIM. That was my bad during the video. The signal threshold is supported. Remote bandwidth monitoring is a SIM card feature, but it is coming. And I do apologize. When I stated that in the video, that is incorrect, and you corrected that. Is there any works to prioritize SIMs in the injector in particular? You can prioritize them based on the order, like I mentioned. So someone asked if you could prioritize the SIMs. If you put them in order on the remote SIM, you have 1, 3, and 4, or whatever, it will then use those in order. It'll either try and then fail and then reconnect, or you can use the sliding graph, the sliding signal to make you fail over. Otherwise,
show that where you type that in. You did earlier, but I'd like to just show that, because that
oh yeah,
it does kind of flow down that list of
so and it's actually kind of easy to tell, and that's where I screwed up. You see how cellular settings, the bandwidth allowance monitor is inside cellular settings, and that feature is not enabled when we set the cellular settings, but signal threshold settings and smart check are their own. So if you set the signal threshold to 3 bars and you have AT&T and T-Mobile and Verizon SIMs listed as slots here. So if this was AT&T, which it is, and then I had a Verizon, and then I had a T-Mobile, then based on the signal threshold, it's going to connect to AT&T first, and then if it fails, it'll connect to Verizon or T-Mobile. Additionally, if it can't connect to the network, if it can't establish a connection, it will then fail over as well. So if I drive through an area that doesn't have one of the carriers, it'll then fail over to the next one. So you can have multiple SIM cards here. The bandwidth allowance monitor, I believe that's coming to FSIM. Is the idea there, like the geo and the monitoring of the usage is going to be cloud, because right now, because it's a remote SIM technology, we need a central platform to manage the total use of that data. So it's not effective on a SIM card like this, where we have no database to track the utilization of each and every SIM card in the SIM injector. So those are your current failover mechanisms. Someone asked about the performance with bonding SpeedFusion. It performs no differently than a SIM card plugged directly into the router. So it's going to be based on coverage, location, and area. So SpeedFusion is going to be just based on the availability of that of what you're currently using. Shouldn't function any different than a SIM card plugged into the router versus a SIM card plugged into the SIM injector.
See, one question about eSIM support. Yes, there is plans to add eSIM support to the SIM injectors as well. So you could additionally assign an eSIM into that injector in the future. That's not right now, but that SIM injector mini does have the hardware support for it. So yeah, more to come on that one.
Yeah, and then next question was BR. I demonstrated the BR2, but not the BR1. You just go and check the device compatibility list. So I believe we were talking about that. And actually in Peplink's own slides, they actually demonstrated a BR1 Pro 5G. So I would assume that the BR1 Pro 5G also works. And then here we go, compatible devices. So these are the devices that all support the SIM injector. So MBX 5G, MBX Mini, PDX, BR1 Classic, Hardware 3, so the new Hardware 3.1, the BR1 ESN, the BR1 Pro, Hardware 5 and 6, Cat 4 and Cat 6, the BR2 Pro, the BR1 IP55, HD2 Mini, HD1 Dome, HD1 Dome Pro, HD2 Dome, HD2 IP67, Transit Pro E, Transit Core, UBR LTE, UBR Plus, which I have one of those, SpeedFusion Engine, Hardware 2 or above, and the SpeedFusion Engine CAM. So just check your hardware, the compatibility. But if you don't have the little red bar, as far as I know, if you don't have a little red thing at the bottom that says doesn't support RSIM, you should be fine. So I believe is the official, like how Peplink is handling that. So Demonstrated. Okay, answer live. Remote router, SIM injector in the data center. Well, the remote router. So if you have like the remote deployment capabilities, like the remote router, the idea is you have a public IP address, and then you're basically connecting those in. Once again, we're building this cloud infrastructure that's really going to make that cleaner. The best use case I've seen for it is actually using SpeedFusion to connect, and then basically accessing the SIM injector via SpeedFusion. But the remote connectivity capabilities coming in is a little messy, which is why we build this cloud environment. And so I think you're going to see. And do we have any ETA for that, Travis, at all? Like the cloud capabilities of the SIM injector?
I don't have a specific ETA on that yet. No.
Okay. Briefcase is really cool. It's just a Pelican case, and then we bolt the equipment to it. Not anything super special there. We use a V-mount battery. We do sell them called SpeedFusion cases, but this is not about sales. So, but it's just a Pelican case with a BR2 Pro 5G, a battery, and antennas. Very easy to make and clean. It's just it's very portable. I carry it with me everywhere. Take it on airplanes. I like it like on airplanes because all the parts are visible. So TSA freaks out. I just open it and they can see it. All the parts. So for TSA, I goes through TSA just fine, and is really clean. So one, I think we're out of time. Two, if you have any additional questions, you can always reach out to Travis or myself. My email address is peter@westnetworks.com or sales@westnetworks.com. We'll get to my whole team. Travis, is your email published, or do you have a preferred?
Travis@peplink.com.
Travis@peplink.com. So Travis@peplink.com or sales@westnetworks.com, and we'd be more than happy to answer any additional questions. There are a lot of use cases and deployment. And there were people that asked questions about bonding and performance. This topic is really about the technology related to the injector, which is why I ignored those. I do apologize for ignoring those. It's just that I wanted to stay focused on the injector technology and not get, because I can talk about performance for hours. So
yeah,
I wanted to,
I think the important thing there is just the performance is not impacted here, right? This
correct.
is just changing how you're inserting the SIM card. So it doesn't have any change on 5G or 4G on, is this a SpeedFusion thing? Is it going to slow it down? It's exactly the same as putting it in that SIM slot, other than how you assign it to that device. So it is no change compared to using that SIM directly installed.
Peter asked a question about physical SIMs and sharing SIMs. As long as it's in the injector, you can share it over the VPN. So I kind of quasi answered that, but the answer is yes.
And share meaning not two devices at once, one
correct.
device.
Yeah. One device per SIM card at a time.
No such thing as two devices, one SIM card. That simultaneously.
Yeah, once it starts flashing, once the SIM injector starts flashing on that card, no other device can talk to it. It has to stop flashing, and then it can talk to it.
Yep.
And then any additional questions, like I said, please feel free to reach out to Travis or myself, and be more than happy to set up a more in-depth conversation. And thank you so much for joining us on another Peplink University Tech Call.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Peter. And again, thank you everyone for joining. Look for us again in a month.
Next month. And if you have any ideas, email us. If there's something you want us to talk about, we just pick what we like. So if there's something you want us to demonstrate or talk about, please email Travis or myself. We'd be more than happy to put it in the queue or prioritize it. But basically, we just decide what technology we think is worth sharing and try to deep dive. So please, if there's something else you want to learn, email Travis or myself, and we'll evaluate if it's something we think the community wants to know. So,
all right, folks, have a great day. Thanks again.
Bye.
Bye.